Kevin Hunter here with Ben Singleton at the Interface Seattle 2018 event. And Ben is from Allstream. You can find information on the organization at allstream.com. Ben, if you would, take our viewers really to what your products and services are and the essence of the organization, Allstream.
Sure, Allstream is a US and Canadian telecom provider with global aspirations. We're part of a group called Zayo, where they have a global presence, but we provide voice and data, pretty much layer 1 on up in the OSI model. That's their phones, that's your internet connections, your private MPLS connections, your email, all of that stuff. We provide the environment for that for SMB, global organizations, government agencies, both sides of the border. That's our primary bread and butter, and we're Mitel's biggest cloud partner in the US and Canada, which is the biggest cloud provider of phones in the world.
So what was kind of your passion that led you into this business?
Well, I got into telecom when I lost my job. I put out 42 applications in 1 week. I started in a call center, and I used to deal with people that were very upset with their experience with the cable company, and I got really good at selling. And so as I got good at selling, I started learning about the products. There was a shift in our market to either become a bill collector or move into the business market where real things happen. And so I decided to pursue that. I did 9.5 years in that environment, came over to a company called Integra, went to Electric Lightwave, same company, and then we were acquired by Zayo and Allstream. And it's been a matter of taking care of customers, doing the right thing for them, and not just for me, and finding the common good and how I can serve and support them. So yeah, that's how I got in.
I'm curious how, from a sales standpoint, your presentations to your customers or the way you're reaching out to your customers, how that might have evolved like over the last 5 or 10 years. And here's the reason I'm asking the question.
Sure.
I was at a presentation in Portland not long ago, and I asked people in the room by a show of hands, who went on the internet today to be sold? And not a single hand went up. And I said, who was on the internet today? And all the hands went up. And we started writing some things on the board as to why they were there, and people mentioned things like information, education, entertainment. That whole push, like in years past, before media really moved to online sources, and Northwest Digital News being a great example of that, people did a lot of things in the way of so-called advertising.
Right.
But now there's a much greater emphasis on informing and educating people. How has that impacted your sales model?
Well, it's always matched my sales model. What I found prior to being in sales of telecom is that if you take care of customers, they take care of you. It's a simple model. Do unto others and they'll do good things for you. But what I've always tried to figure out is what are the customers trying to fix, accomplish, or avoid? And then based upon those things, I provide a solution that works for both of us. My deal with all of my customers, if it doesn't work for you and for me, it doesn't work and we're done. And if I can't help you, I'll point you in the right direction. Yeah, I mean, a lot of times people, as you shared, we're on the internet and nobody wants to be sold, but everybody wants to be helped out. And
Absolutely.
A lot of times salespeople, sales quote-unquote professionals, they're there for the sale. And because my philosophy has always been customer first, myself a close second, and then the company, I'm able to make everybody happy and be successful year over year, deal with acquisitions, deal with mergers, deal with transitions, and still keep the same customers. Where if I call a customer that I sold 5 years ago, they'll still take my call, and if they're in the market or if there's something that they need or their transition, they let me know. And when they go from one company to the next, they reach out to me because they know I took care of them. And that, I think, is one of the things that unfortunately is lacking in sales. In telecommunications, usually sales reps quit 6 months, 9 months, or they get fired because they don't know how to do their job or they got a better paycheck, but what happened to the customer? So I'm here for the long term, and that's why I've done this for 16 years and only had 2 companies to work for.
So then it's up to you to do a good needs analysis in that beginning
Absolutely.
part in order to take care of whatever their wants or needs are.
Yeah, I mean, if you come in with a presentation of, I'm going to sell them this, then how are you going to listen to what their needs are?
That's what I was referring to.
How are you going to know? Now, I may have, because I've been doing it for so long, a good idea of the things that other people in their vertical, in their market, in their industry are concerned with. Then I may have a game plan, so that way I can speak to it. But I generally try to think 2 or 3 steps ahead, so that way when I'm in the moment, I can be present with the customer, I can be present with what their needs are, and then start saying, I don't have the answer, I've got some solutions I'm thinking about, let's come back, so that way when we put this thing together, it will work for everybody. It works out financially, technically, whatever the person is. If they're a CFO, it's about the money, but it may not be about the technology. If it's a CCO, it's the reverse. So it's a matter of understanding who my clients are and what their needs are, and then also trying to engage other people. So it's not just a single person that you're making a decision with that everybody else has to live with, because that's unfortunately what a lot of people live with. The CTO signed off on something and didn't consult financing, and then everybody suffers, or the reverse. So engaging multiple parties so that way the solution is the benefit of the organization. So
it's not uncommon for people to not think beyond that immediate sphere of influence, whatever that might be. I have some question, because a lot of people would say that voice and data, if you mention those words to them, they go, yeah, I know what that is. And I know whatever solutions I might need. And yet, I've seen some businesses make some really huge mistakes with this regard. What would you say are some of the common misunderstandings or myths, so to speak, relative to voice and data?
So there's a term called VoIP. Everyone's heard of it. You've heard of the big companies that do home businesses. One, you can't make the internet your friend. You can try to control a little bit, but it's like traffic in a major city. So just because you have a big pipe, it doesn't mean that the voice is going to get there when you need it.
Correct.
And it's just like you got a Ferrari, but if you're in I-5 or in Seattle, I-5 traffic on Friday night, you cannot do the speed limit. You're lucky if you're getting 35 miles an hour. And when you're talking about a real-time application, it is absolutely critical that the ones and zeros start and end in the right order without any gaps. So that's one of the things. The second thing is that that it's going to be cheaper if I do it myself. You know, the cost issue. The cost issue. People will sit there and say, well, I read about something, or I was at a trade show, like a great trade show like Interface, and I can make my own phone system, which is great until you get upset at the company you work for and you leave with the cookies, or you get hit by a car, and then the company's stuck in the middle. This isn't something that most people do every day. Most people in the telecom space often evolve into the role because someone else has quit. That's why, not because they went with a telecom. And I didn't start in telecom. I started in sales, and it worked into that.
You mentioned doing it yourself. I was aware of a dealership organization that had their own internal IT guy do all of their voice and data stuff, and he convinced the owner that he could do a great job of it. But somewhere along the lines of changing from their current supplier and providers to what he thought was a good workable solution, everything went down. I mean, the parts and service shut down, the service department shut down, there were no incoming calls to sales.
Right.
I was having a conversation with a dealer owner after all of this, and I asked him, I says, what do you think this cost you? And he goes, well, just right off the start, about $250,000 plus whatever customers might have called us and now think we're out of business.
Absolutely.
And so I'm sitting here, I have looked at other bad decisions people make, and somebody gets into legal trouble as an example, and they decide to defend themselves or do their own legal work. And I've shared with them that there are many examples of where DIY equals SOL.
Right.
And this person did it themselves and shot themselves in the foot. What advice do you have for them?
Well, one I would say is leave it to the professionals. If I was seeking, I had a legal case, I would get a lawyer. If I had medical, yes, I might be able to lance a boil or something like that, but I would certainly never perform open heart surgery, even if there was a really great YouTube tutorial. Leave DIY to cooking, but don't do surgery, and don't try to do telecom. Leave it to folks that do it traditionally. Allstream has been one of the largest partners, as I shared, with Mitel for about 25 years, both in the US and Canada. It's what we do. There are many vendors that are in the emerging space that they are doing other things. They are hardware providers, and now they want to do phones. Do you want to trust your business for them to learn at your expense? As you had with the mechanic, with the auto parts. The answer should be no. A lot of times people think of phones as being a commodity, and everyone wants to say we're going to get rid of them, but yet year after year they show up on the desk. Now, there's newer technologies that are coming out. People are using soft phones more regularly, and so I think there'll be some trends that go into that, but I would say leave it to the professionals. We're here to help. Not everyone's bad. There are great brokers that sell multiple lines, and they'll give you an option. Working with direct companies like Allstream is a great option as well, and I can help out on all that.
What's interesting is I asked the dealer, that why did you make this mistake? You know, what led you to making this decision? And he said that he goes, Kevin, cars are our business. That's what we do. That's what we're experts at. And he goes, all these other things, there's plenty of things that support-wise have to be done in the organization, but he goes, trust me, that's not on my radar. If somebody's saying, hey, I can save you some money to do this, whatever, I very willingly turn that over to the IT guy. Ends up costing himself a lot of money, and I said, so in using your methodology, if I was shopping for a car, I should go look on Craigslist instead of talking to you.
Right.
And he's like, no, that's not what I meant. But I said, well, that's pretty much what you did.
Right.
You know, so.
Absolutely, and it's unfortunate too, because when people have that short view, they're trying to cut corners. Rather than it is okay to make corner cutting.
Yeah.
It happens all the time, but the thing is you should be informed about it. So having a consultation, I mean, as I shared, my piece is understanding what the needs of the business are and trying to understand as much as possible about how does this affect payroll, how does this affect HR. There's people that are doing things like a thing called SIP, Session Initiative Protocol, VoIP, and they're not considering what about encryption and security. So what happens when they get hit and then they have to pay out a big fine? They save money now, but when they get fined by the government, bad. Have a full review before you execute. It's not something you should do overnight. Most systems and most networks have evolved over years, and no one has ever taken the time to stop, think, breathe, measure twice, measure 3 times, cut once.
This is an area that, although people are familiar with the terms of voice and data, it's an area also, though, that a lot of people don't know a lot of information about. So you pitch this to organizations all the time. What would you, for somebody who's saying, hey, maybe we need to be looking at our system, maybe there's some changes we need to make, what would be some logical first steps for them?
Well, the first steps that I would look at is the following. Finding out how many locations. Are we talking about a single site or multi-site is the first thing. Identifying the kind of workers. There's generally about 4 types of phones outside of a thing called telecenters and contact centers, but general dial-in smile type of applications. What are evaluation of what are we doing for our email? You know, many people are bundling their voice and their voice with their email platform. But the challenge, unfortunately, is that's done over the top of the internet, where we go back to that sound quality issue. And while it's cheaper, if you lose business, it often costs you much more. So identifying those people, and then bring in a professional, bring in someone you know. A lot of times people will bring in somebody that they think they know telecom, but how many companies have they been with? Look at their LinkedIn. It's okay to look at their LinkedIn.
Yeah.
And you'll find stability is a good thing.
People actually do that for hiring practices, you know, for employees. So why wouldn't they do that for a provider?
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Well, a pleasure having you here on the broadcast, Ben, for the benefit of our viewers. And Kyle, if you can throw that in the stream below. Allstream.com is the website. You can go to find more information. Special thanks to everybody who joined us here today on Patreon, on Twitch TV, YouTube, and of course the Facebook pages. Kevin Hunter here in Northwest Digital News, and special thanks, Ben, here for joining us on the broadcast.
Thank you.
Till next time.